one of the bitterest ones. You know, if I personally, incidentally, something I meant to point out, the first few commandments are our relationship with God, and the last, I think, first 3 and the last 4 are, from 4 on are our relationship between ourselves. If I was going personally, just to make a judgment call myself, if I was going to pick a commandment which has caused more pain and suffering than any of these, I don't think I'd pick murdering, and despite the genocides and all the rest. I wouldn't pick a number of these, even though they're quite heinous, I suppose, especially on the scale that mankind is able to apply them. You know what I suspect would be a good candidate for the most hideous thing, causing more pain and suffering than any of them, and that's this one. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. It doesn't say thou shalt not lie. It says thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Let me give you an example of what it includes. Have you ever passed on a story about someone without checking it out? Have you ever indulged in hearsay evidence involving somebody you know? We call that gossip. I suspect that the pain and suffering and injustice caused by gossip every day by each of us, the cumulative effect of that is staggering. When you hear, have you ever, think about it, the next time you pass on some thought, some assessment, some apparent fact about somebody that you don't know is necessarily true, you are being a false witness. If you imply you know something about somebody and you really don't, you might be causing an injustice that would absolutely shock you to realize. And you know, the insidious thing about gossip, it never has a court of appeal. It never has a court of rebuttal. The person lied about never knows he's being lied about. All he knows is that his reputation, he's slandered, his credibility is slowly eroded. The injury is like a gas, a fog. It just pervades his life, and he never knows why. He's never confronted with an accuser. He's never confronted with a fact to disprove. It just happens. And that's something that I suspect is far, far more insidious than... I often wonder when I was a kid, when I used to have to memorize these things, why doesn't, thou shalt not lie? Hey, I can tell little white lies. It doesn't say it. It says false witness. And I used to dream up all kinds of ways by lying could really be more pleasant, you know. Your girlfriend says, how do you like my new dress? Gee, do I really tell her? You can conjure up those silly things. This isn't dealing with lying. This isn't dealing with lying, in my opinion. I'm not saying you had a lie. Don't misunderstand me. I am saying that there's something more insidious here, the concept of a false witness. And I think it also applies to something else. When somebody is being unjustly talked about, you know better and keep silent. Are you being a true witness? Then you're being a false witness. I think this commandment is one that we could spend a lot of time on. I think it's neglected, and I think it's insidious. If you don't believe me, wait till someone gossips about you sometime, and you'll know what I'm talking about.